Formula One has always been about passion, emotion, and fierce competition, but what happens when the drivers are stripped of their voices? George Russell and the GPDA fought hard for transparency, fairness, and respect, but the FIA had other plans. Unanswered letters, secret rule changes, and extreme fines have crushed driver opposition. Now, with Appendix B, the FIA has taken full control, banning political statements, harsh language, and even gestures, all under threat of massive penalties. Even Toto Wolff, once an ally, has abandoned the cause. How did it all fall apart? Stay with us to find out, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates. Let's start. The FIA is responsible for regulating the technical, sporting, and financial aspects of Formula One, ensuring that all competitors follow the rules and safety standards. However, their latest crackdown on driver behavior, particularly penalties for swearing and restricting expressions, has stirred controversy. Many believe these measures are limiting the freedom of drivers and making the sport overly controlled. It all started with the growing frustration among drivers regarding how the FIA was handling decisions that affected them directly. Russell, alongside other GPDA members, made it clear that the drivers were fed up with the lack of communication. Following the Brazilian Grand Prix, the GPDA even issued an open letter to the FIA, demanding better dialogue and transparency. The response? Silence. The governing body didn't even acknowledge the letter, leaving Russell and his fellow drivers feeling unheard and disrespected. In the build-up to the Las Vegas Grand Prix, Russell's frustration reached a breaking point. Speaking to the media, he admitted that many drivers had simply had enough. There are several drivers who feel fed up with the whole situation, and only it seems to be going, to a degree, in the wrong direction, he said. His words reflected a deepening rift between those behind the wheel and those in power. But as passionate as Russell and his fellow drivers were, it became painfully obvious that their voices didn't matter. The FIA was not interested in the discussion. The governing body had no intention of giving the GPDA a seat at the table. Formula One was no longer a place where driver input was welcome. As the FIA continued to tighten its grip, its disciplinary measures became more extreme. The crackdown on driver behavior reached new levels, with penalties being handed out for infractions that, in the past, would have been brushed off as harmless. Max Verstappen was ordered to complete community service for swearing during a Singapore Grand Prix press conference. Charles Leclerc was slapped with a €10,000 fine in Mexico for using offensive language, though half of it was suspended for 12 months. And it wasn't just language restrictions. Drivers were now heavily monitored for any political or personal statements. Expressing opinions on social issues without FIA approval was strictly prohibited. The GPDA fought back, arguing that these punishments were not only excessive but raised ethical concerns, particularly regarding the massive fines. Where was the money going? George Russell, never one to shy away from asking tough questions, demanded answers. He wanted to know how the FIA was using the fine money and whether it was being reinvested into motorsport, as the organization had previously claimed, but once again there was no response. When Mohammed Ben Sulayem was elected FIA president in 2021, he campaigned on promises of transparency and a commitment to improving communication between the governing body and the sport's key stakeholders. That promise, as it turned out, was empty. Russell and other drivers pointed out that there was no proof that fine money was being used for grassroots motorsport, as the FIA had claimed. For us, when we were hearing from the FIA a couple of years ago during the presidential elections, they were all about transparency, Russell stated. They assured us that fine money would be reinvested into grassroots motorsport, which we fully support, but we have seen no evidence of this happening. As tensions continued to rise, the FIA's secretive decision-making process only added fuel to the fire. One of the biggest shocks came when Niels Vidic, a familiar and well-respected race steward, was suddenly removed from his position and replaced by Rui Marcus for the final 3 races of the season. No explanation was given. The decision blindsided the drivers, further reinforcing the perception that they were being kept in the dark about matters that directly impacted them. Russell openly admitted that he didn't even understand what was happening within the FIA anymore. "I don't know what this whole governance change means with the compliance situation," he said. "I don't even know exactly what it is, but it seems like quite a big deal." The message from the FIA was clear. Drivers were to be seen, not heard. Despite the growing unrest among drivers, Mohammed Ben Sulayem remained unmoved. He dismissed the GPDA's concerns outright, making it clear that in his eyes, their opinions held no weight. When asked about the letter they had sent, his response was blunt. "None of their business. Sorry. With all due respect, I am a driver. I respect the drivers. Let them go and concentrate on what they do best, which is race." Before we continue, we hope you're enjoying our video. If so, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more news and updates from the F1 world. With every unanswered question, every ignored complaint, and every unnecessary fine, the FIA solidified its authority. And then came the final nail in the coffin. Appendix B, set to take effect in 2025, this new set of regulations gives the FIA complete control over driver behavior, both on and off the track. The rules are strict, leaving no room for interpretation. Offensive, insulting, or rude language is prohibited. Inappropriate gestures are banned. Any form of public incitement of violence or hatred will be punished. Physical altercations between competitors will not be tolerated, and most significantly, political and religious statements are forbidden without prior approval from the FIA. The penalties for breaking these rules are severe. A first offense results in a €40,000 fine. A second offense doubles the fine to €80,000 and includes a 1-month suspension. By the third offense, drivers will face a €120,000 fine, championship point deductions, and another 1-month suspension. There is no room for negotiation. The FIA has made it crystal clear: step out of line, and there will be consequences. Perhaps the most surprising shift, however, came from Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff. A longtime supporter of the GPDA, Wolff had previously criticized the FIA's handling of driver concerns. He accused them of turning their governance into a reality show, warning that their actions could damage the integrity of Formula One. He pushed for financial transparency and demanded that Ben Sulayem treat drivers like adults. At the time, Wolff's stance aligned perfectly with Russell's mission. But now he has changed course. Instead of continuing to back the GPDA's fight, Wolff has sided with the FIA's stricter behavioral regulations. He now argues that drivers need to be role models and that maintaining a respectful atmosphere in the sport is essential. Drivers are role models. We have a responsibility to ensure that our sport remains respectful and inspiring for the next generation, he said. He went further, reinforcing that limiting offensive language was a good thing. "I think we want to see emotion in the car, and there are ways to show that or not. I think we also have a responsibility to all spectators. In that regard, I think any initiative is good, and if we stop some bad language, it is positive." With that, George Russell has been left alone in a battle he can no longer fight. The FIA has crushed all opposition. The sport's governing body has sent a message that is impossible to ignore. This is their world, and the drivers must follow their rules. This is the wrap of today's video. The FIA has tightened its grip on Formula One, leaving drivers like George Russell powerless to fight back. With strict new rules, heavy fines, and no room for dissent, the sport's governing body has made one thing clear: this is their world, and the drivers must obey. But what do you think? Has the FIA gone too far, or is this the right move for the future of the sport? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more F1 updates.